Right, today we are going to be talking about double sessions. Now, on the JST programming, there are often times when we need to, double up our training, hit, an AM and PM session. So we've got some really simple advice, guys, to how to maximize your training performance using nutrition. So we've got Coach Tom here. We're going to go through some really simple points. First one is pre-workout. This is a really, really important area to focus on. Now, we're not talking about, just having a massive shiny tub of pre-workout before your first and second session. We've got some really kind of key points that we want to touch on, such as should you be training fasted or in a fed state? Now, this is down to personal preference. Training fasted, there are some benefits. Training fed, there are some benefits. Like, it doesn't matter. What you need to do is make sure that you're being aware of how you feel, how you perform in those sessions. Okay, so you can approach morning sessions in a fasted state and hit them with just as much as intensity as in a fed state. But if you find that you're just kind of surviving through it, then you might want to be thinking about, adding something in. Now, this is where we would ask you to look at the session volume and the intensity, and potentially then start to be thinking about using something pre-workout, because with double sessions, we have minimal opportunities in the day to be able to fuel ourselves. So we need to maybe look at the session volume and intensity, and then maybe kind of looking at what you're doing later in that day. Like, Tom, you train, regularly, double training. Like, if people are normally training fasted, but they have this really intense session, maybe in the morning, like a really good, solid conditioning piece, and then maybe they're lifting later in the day. How can they approach, like, maybe adding something in to ensure that they get the most out of both of their sessions?
Yeah, so for the first session, I think I know personally and clients that we've worked with, having just something, so they're going into that session in a fed state, provides the body with circulating energy. Not only for that session, but again, it's money in the bank for later in the day. That only needs to be, could only be something 100 to 200 calories. Liquid form is going to be great early in the morning if you're short on time, training first thing, it will digest nice and quickly. Like I say, so you've got it to use, but then it's banked for the second session. Common pitfalls we see is just people not eating enough between session 1 and session 2.
Yeah.
So you kind of really need to think about, I need to refuel from session 1, but then, that's almost like fueling the tank for session 2 as well. So whether it's thinking about, right, I need an extra snack before that second session, or I need to make those meals just a little bit bigger. So that, again, you're approaching that second session that you can attack it and you can get the best out of it.
Yeah, definitely. Like, again, we can be focused on, we've got to have almost a bird's eye view. We've got to come up and look at the whole day, as opposed to just focusing on, like, what am I doing after that, before that first session, second session? Like you said, it's money in the bank. That's a great way to think about it. You get a little bit of, energy in early, get it in before that first session. You say it's going to help performance, but it's also going to help recovery and fueling for later in the day. So for us, pre-workout nutrition for the first session needs to be kind of dictated about what you're going to be doing later in the day. Your pre-workout nutrition for the second session, like, it starts after the first one. So, don't be delaying that. We're going to come on to that in a minute. But getting that in and making sure that, say, you're eating enough going into that second session, because depending on what you're going to be doing later in the day, we want to be making sure that we've got enough fuel in the tank. And look, the next thing is, pre-workout nutrition should be potentially dictated by how you feel. We can look at a lot of the sessions, and sometimes you'd be like, oh, this doesn't look too bad. And then all of a sudden it kicks our ass, and, we maybe need to adjust. So if you feel super wiped out after your first session, you're going into that second one going, man, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. You might want to be thinking about then eating a little bit more pre-workout to get you through that second session, and make sure that you're not just like surviving through it, actually kind of, really kind of driving that, really driving through that session rather than just, like, say, cruising it. So that's what I would be thinking about pre-workout, making sure that, you're looking at it from a whole kind of big picture point of view,
Yeah.
and maybe, let's say, getting some money in the bank.
Yeah, I would agree, Liam. I think what I do is work back from that second session.
Yeah.
So in terms of time of day, and then work back between, session one. So do I need a recovery shake and a meal? Do I need a meal, then maybe like a snack before that second session? Because again, common pitfalls I see is people kind of maybe having something to eat, maybe not that well structured, and then they kind of get really close to that second session, panic. Suddenly, then they're 2 cans of Nocco deep, which is like caffeine for fuel, but rather than using, being planned and having that snack, 60 minutes, 90 minutes before that session. So they're using food for energy and fuel rather than just like relying on caffeine, and training later in the day. Too much coffee could affect their sleep and recovery and have a knock on from there.
Yeah, definitely. Let's say you got to fuel the tank rather than running on fumes. So, that's some really, really good advice there, guys. So look, pre-workout nutrition, making sure that you're looking at it, for both sessions. Now, the next thing is about post-workout nutrition. Obviously, we just touched on, post-workout for the first session, but post-workout nutrition becomes very important when we're double training. Now, you may have heard of the post-workout window, the anabolic gains, all of this, and how some people will be like, it doesn't matter, it doesn't exist. Like, it does exist. It's a real thing. However, for the majority of people that are training maybe 1 hour a day or 3-4 times a week, no, it doesn't matter. Like, it's a real thing. Our muscles, our body is a little bit more sensitive to absorbing protein, carbohydrates, certain nutrients in that post-workout period. However, when we are double training, it matters because we have limited time between sessions. So we want to maximize repair, regeneration, and energy replenishment after that first session, okay? So that we are going into that second session feeling good. And we're not becoming a catabolic state by, not refueling adequately going into that second session, then potentially kind of, we're fighting an uphill battle if we're constantly doing this. So guys, nutrient timing matters. Post-workout, you want to be thinking about repair, protein, replenishment, carbohydrates, and making sure that you're eating enough depending on the volume and intensity of that session. Now, Tom, you train, again, I'll come back to you. You train multiple times a week. You do double sessions. So look, just talk about what you kind of do, your kind of setup, and give the guys a bit of an overview of how to approach it.
So between session 1 and 2, for me, it's about convenience. So it will either be a meal in a shake form, because that's something I can prepare the night before, prepare in the morning, something I can get a lot of calories in fairly quickly because it's liquid based. Or it will be, like an overnight oat recipe. So again, I've got protein, got carbohydrates. I can make it quite energy dense again.
Yeah.
And it's easy food for me to consume. I'm not there having mountains of, high fiber veg, whole grains, 4 slices of toast, things that take me a long time to eat. Yeah. And then, they're potentially higher fiber, so they're slower digesting. They might make me feel a little bit bloated, etc. So for me, the evening meal and the meal furthest away from my training, that's where I can get those foods in. I'm not saying you haven't got to, and you shouldn't eat veg in between sessions. Maybe you want to go for, things that are more water-based, things like spinach, tomatoes, peppers, things that you can have in salads or wraps, and things that are, again, great nutrient content, but not too much fiber. Again, like the key here is performance, isn't it? So we want to refuel, restock, and then, look to fuel again for that second session. Yeah.
Definitely. Like, look, it's a competition day effectively. You got minimal time. You want to be thinking about, getting the most out of both of these sessions. So yeah, carbs and protein, they are the fuel. They help you repair. I'm not saying, like, say, just eat protein and carbs. You can sneak some veggies in there as well, but the more fibrous, the more, like, say, the more voluminous foods, you want to be saving, towards the end of the day or post your second session. Now, if you finish your second session at 3 p.m., like you say, you might have a couple of feeds after that you can really kind of load up with that stuff. So training meal, that's our kind of slightly lower fat, higher carb protein meal that you want to be consuming there. And guys, I would, depending on the, like Tom said earlier, work back from that second session, making sure that you might get, 1, 2, 3 feeds in before that, second session, because that's really, really important. Okay. So we're talking about calorie balance. So often we see people backload their calories. We see them, they often come to us, Tom, and they go, I don't want to feel too heavy going into my session. I want to feel light, and you will feel heavy if you eat the wrong things. But if you eat the correct things, and like you say, more energy dense, less volume, that's going to help you to go into that session feeling fueled, but not heavy. Okay. So you really need to be thinking about balancing your calories over the day, as opposed to just backloading them to the evening, and just eating loads, late at night. If you balance your calories, it will result in better recovery and better performance. And I guarantee you guys, once you get it right, figuring out kind of a couple of options for your kind of, in between sessions nutrition is going to really be beneficial. So Tom said there, he uses like an overnight oats or more liquid base, maybe a smoothie, but we use wraps a lot. We use like egg wraps. We use like chicken wraps, and because basically everything tastes better in a wrap. But they're really easy, they're consumable, but they're, like I say, they're energy dense, as opposed to kind of tucking through chicken, rice, and broccoli. If you're sticking like, some tuna, some boiled eggs, some like, even some beans and, whatever it is, if you're vegan, into a wrap, it's a lot easier to consume quite quickly. We have an article about how to eat more on our blog as well. So that's a really good thing to be able to use some of those tips for that kind of in between workout nutrition. Look, backloading calories for me can cause, obviously a little bit of a subpar performance, especially in that second session, but it can also cause issues such as, with your digestion, because you then got to consume a considerable amount of calories later on in the day to hit your targets. Now, we often see people struggle to hit their targets. So all of a sudden then that's okay for maybe 1 day, 2 days, but then we see this accumulation of fatigue. And then that's when we can really start to kind of, see some negative consequences. So, making sure that you get a good calorie distribution is going to be really, really important. And look, there's increased stress, like an increased stress on the body because you're under fueling it and asking it to do a lot of work. But there's increased stress in terms of, now I've got to, I've only got 5 hours and I've got to consume this many calories. Like, that's a stress, on the body. Like, look, Tom, you got a couple of really key points here, like that you added to the list when we was off air. Like, talk through these.
Yeah, again, I think, like I say, it's context is key. Like, a lot of people know that obviously, like, calories are the main factor in things like body composition, but we're looking here at performance. We're looking at performing well, fueling, recovering, like the bigger picture, that bird's eye view. Just because we've done like 2 sessions and, maybe we've kind of, missed a meal or a snack in between, doesn't give you then the right to kind of like eat what you want, or like if it fits your macros approach in the evening. I often see people, again, if we're backloading calories and they've used on MyFitnessPal, I've got 1,000 calories left, I can eat what I like for that. Again, the quality of that isn't going to be very good. So what effect is that going to have on your recovery? What effect is that going to have on your gut health? And then you're just chasing yourself day after day. So we've got to take a little step back and like I say, it reduces the stress. We can better distribute protein if we eat more balanced throughout the day. And we've got some big guys with some big targets, and if you break it down, it doesn't look as big, I don't think, if you break it down into 4 or 5 meals a day. No,
yeah, exactly that. That's it. You've got to break it down and try to maybe distribute at least 60-70% of your intake, to the first kind of 2/3 of the day. Don't be leaving, 75% of your intake in the last third of your day, because it's just going to be impossible to eat. So, like I say, break it down and try and plan out a little bit more, using some of those tips that are on that blog, and like I say, more energy dense foods. lower fiber, lower volume foods, and that's going to make it easier for you to get those calories in earlier in the day. And then look, take advantage of liquid nutrition as well. This is where maybe shakes, recovery shakes, especially, smoothies can be really beneficial just to, just get those calories in and make sure that there's a better distribution. Last point we want to kind of touch on is the type of session. Now, Tom, the guys just said that, most of the time you're just given your training, and actually people can kind of distribute it, however they want. I've had clients that go, oh, sometimes I do it in one, sometimes I split it, sometimes I decide on, depending on their work schedule or whatever. Like, how do you set yours up?
I think for me, it's my primary goal. I find, in the strength parts, in the conditioning parts, there's often options, whether it's based on you're just working to an RPE, or, it may be, there's some interval work and it will say, times 4 to 6 rounds. Yeah. Now, I sometimes know if I'm double sessioning, if my primary goal is actually that second session in the day, what benefit am I going to get absolutely burying myself in that first session? Probably not. Like for me, like that's not my weakest area. So, yeah. My weakest area would be, like time with the barbell. That's the time I want to be spending, hitting all my percentages, hitting my numbers, hitting all the sets, rather than just just struggling through that second session. So I think that's some really good, things to look on the program. It's like, you're not doing it wrong if you take the lower option, the lower number of rounds. You got to pick your battles, haven't you?
Yeah, mate, that's really, for me, that's really good insight. Let's say you got to prioritize those 3 primary goal, because that's going to make the biggest effect on performance. That's going to move the needle the most. And like you said, we're not talking about sandbagging these sessions. It's like picking the slightly lower one and say moving with quality, as opposed to crushing yourself, because trying to go all in every session is really, really challenging. And you will just hit a plateau or hit a ceiling where you just can't seem to go any further, and fatigue and other things start to kind of occur. So we want to be thinking about, maybe some sessions are performance based, and then most of them are practice based. And when you go performance, look, that's it. That's all in, 2 foot, as they say, full send, let's go. But trying to do that in every single session is going to be challenging. It's going to make you basically, fail. So like Tom said, prioritize your primary goal, and and adjust your training, but then it allows you to focus your fueling around that. So just to loop back there on the pre-workout nutrition, like if you're on the engine bias and you maybe want to kind of increase some of your body's ability to utilize fat as an energy source, you want to improve your aerobic capacity, then training in a fasted state can be really beneficial. I have no idea what that's come up. So yeah, going into it allows you to focus your fueling. So that's going to be a really good thing for you to be able to kind of choose, right, let's set up my week, look at your week overview, and then focus on some really kind of, sessions that you're going to be really going, all in.
I think you've got to do that groundwork. You've got to earn the right to pull the pin. And that's what the Super Saturday's for, isn't it? That's the time to you're maxing out, or you're putting yourself in a hole. The sessions during the week, stick to the program. I see so many people trying to nudge up, or or let's say trying to go full send. It's getting that groundwork, that 6, 7, 8 out of 10 work in, so that when you want to go 9, 10 out of 10, you can. If you try and go 10 out of 10, 6 days a week, you're going to burn out. You might get injured, and you won't make progress. You'll stand still.
Yeah, that's it. You won't make progress. You think that you're pushing forward, but then you won't. Let's say, stick to the program. And this is where the guys are amazing. Reach out to the coaches and just ask for a little bit of advice in terms of on the groups and whatever, how to adjust things. But it is taking that step back and looking at what your primary goal is, and that allows you to kind of focus your fueling. So definitely kind of have a look at those 4 key areas, guys. Looking at your pre-workout around the different types of sessions, making sure that you take advantage of that post-workout period, especially after that first session, making sure that you get that calorie balance correct, and not just waiting till the end of the day and unloading up, because as Tom said, that can lead to digestive issues. It can lead to poor choices. And you know, and if you do balance your calories correctly, it's going to make the best effect on your performance. And then have a little look type of session, but pick your primary goal, and like I say, you know, be really sensible about how you adjust the programming, because the guys have, you know, done an amazing job of mapping it out and giving you that slight ability to kind of vary to make sure that you're progressing in the areas that you need to do it. Just to finish up on, guys, we have the, you know, loads of you jumped on the offer that we had, which is fantastic. We do have the hub now available. It's just £10 a month. It's linked in the slide here. It's also on the comment section of this video. So yeah, just make sure that you are kind of, you know, taking a little look, because we have so many different courses on there. The one that I think is really relevant for this at the moment is the timing of training. Okay, so we've got the timing of training series here, where we have a workbook. So if you want to kind of note down and have a little bit of an insight in terms of what works for you, but you can do that. But we have morning training, lunchtime training, evening training, double training, specific workout nutrition that you can go through to be like, okay, this is what I need to be focusing on if I train at this time. Okay, it's really easy. We have loads of different ideas for you as well, so we can map these out, so you can take advantage of all of this knowledge in one place. Okay, Tom, thank you so much for another insightful look at some really key points that the JST guys can use to get the most out of their training. We've got lots more videos coming up, guys. We're going to be going on to different biases. But if there's anything you want us to cover, then just let us know, and we'll talk to you all very soon.